Sheriff Jake Carter was finally enjoying a rare quiet weekend. His house sat on the outskirts of the neighborhood, just beyond the HOA's reach, exactly how he liked it. The coffee in his hand was still steaming when he heard tires screeching outside. A moment later, his neighbor, Tom, stormed up the porch, his face red with fury. "They've lost their damn minds, Jake," Tom panted, pointing down the road. "The HOA put down spike strips." Jake blinked. "Come again?" Tom threw his hands in the air. "Spike strips? On our road? They say it's to stop reckless driving." That made no sense. The road leading to their homes was a private, it was county maintained. Jake figured there had to be some misunderstanding. "I'll take a look," he said, grabbing his keys. Driving toward the neighborhood entrance, he spotted them immediately, gleaming metal spikes embedded in the pavement, controlled by some kind of remote mechanism. A self-important man in an HOA security uniform stood beside them, arms crossed. Jake rolled down his window. "Morning. What's this about?" The guard, Greg, gave him a smug smile. "New HOA safety measure. Keeps non-members from speeding through." Jake's grip on the wheel tightened. "This is a county road, not HOA property." Greg shrugged. "Our board says otherwise." "Got a problem?" "Take it up with them." Before Jake could respond, a sedan turned into the neighborhood, its driver oblivious to the spikes. A sharp pop cut through the morning air, followed by a startled yell. The car wobbled to a stop, two tires shredded. Jake exhaled slowly. This wasn't just some overreach, this was a lawsuit waiting to happen. And they had no idea who they were messing with. The driver of the sedan, a middle-aged man in a button-down shirt, stepped out, staring in disbelief at his ruined tires. "You have got to be kidding me," he shouted, pointing at the spikes. "What the hell is this?" Greg, the HOA enforcer, barely glanced at him. "You should have read the new HOA rules. All non-approved vehicles must stop for inspection." "Inspection?" The man fumed. "I live here." Greg pulled out a clipboard like he was a border agent. "Then you should have registered your vehicle with the HOA. No sticker, no entry without clearance." Jake leaned against his truck, watching the ridiculous exchange unfold. He could see Greg was relishing the tiny bit of power he had. The poor driver, meanwhile, was turning red with frustration. Jake decided to intervene. "You do realize disabling vehicles like this is illegal, right?" Greg smirked. "It's not illegal. The HOA board approved it." Jake sighed. "You think the HOA board gets to override county law?" Greg crossed his arms. "Unless you're an HOA member, your opinion doesn't matter." Jake held back a laugh. If only this guy knew who he was talking to. Instead, he glanced at the spikes. "How do you control these?" Greg tapped his pocket. "Remote access. Only HOA security can disable them. Keeps the riffraff out." The man with the blown tire stepped closer. "You just cost me $2,000 in damage." Greg didn't flinch. "You can file a complaint with the board." Jake had seen enough. These guys weren't just overstepping, they were on a full-blown power trip. He smiled slightly. "All right. I'll take it up with the board." Greg gave a condescending nod. "Smart choice." Jake chuckled. "Yeah, real smart." They had no idea they'd just pissed off the actual sheriff. Back at his office, Jake leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the desk. His gut told him this wasn't just an HOA overstepping, they were profiting off this stunt. He pulled up the county's property records. As he suspected, the road wasn't HOA controlled, it was county maintained. That meant Greg and his goons had no legal authority to block it, let alone damage vehicles. Jake dug deeper, searching for any complaints against the HOA. The results weren't just bad, they were worse than he imagined. Multiple residents had filed reports about excessive fines, threats of foreclosure over non-compliant lawn furniture, and even attempts to tow legally parked cars. The spike strips were just the latest in a long pattern of HOA extortion. Bingo! Jake muttered, picking up his phone. First, he called the county commissioner's office. "Hey, Doug, I need confirmation that Maple Ridge Road is public property." Doug chuckled. "You mean the road the HOA's been trying to claim for years?" "Yeah, it's not theirs." "Why?" Jake grinned. "Because they just set up spike strips and are charging access fees." Doug whistled. "That's felony territory." Next, Jake called his deputies. "Meet me at Maple Ridge tomorrow morning. We're shutting this down." By sunrise, Jake rolled up to Maple Ridge Road. This time, he wasn't alone. 3 squad cars followed behind him, red and blue lights flashing. Deputies stepped out, hands resting on their belts. Greg, still half asleep in his golf cart, nearly choked on his coffee when he saw them. "What's going on?" he stammered. Jake stepped forward, holding up his badge. "Sheriff Jake Carter. You're under investigation for illegal road obstruction, willful property damage, and extortion." Nancy Wilkins, the HOA president, rushed out of her house, already in a panic. "This is a misunderstanding. We were just enforcing neighborhood rules." Jake pulled out his tablet and hit play. The hidden camera footage showed Greg sneaking out at night, resetting the spike strips, and selectively targeting non-members. Nancy paled. "You knew this road wasn't yours," Jake said. "And now you're looking at felony charges for tampering with a public roadway." Greg opened his mouth to argue right as one of Jake's deputies slapped handcuffs on him. The HOA members stood frozen, watching their so-called enforcers get taken away. Jake turned to Nancy. "You still want to talk about misunderstandings?" She didn't say a word. Smart choice. The fallout was instant. By noon, local news vans lined the street, reporters shoving microphones in residents' faces. The footage of Greg rigging the spike strips and checking a list of approved vehicles was already going viral. Furious homeowners packed the HOA meeting that evening, shouting over one another. Residents demanded answers. "You blew through our budget on illegal spike strips," one man yelled. "What else have you been hiding?" another snapped. The vote was unanimous. The HOA board was dissolved on the spot. And just like that, the empire Nancy had built collapsed. With the HOA gone, the neighborhood finally felt normal again. To celebrate, the residents threw a massive barbecue, the first real community event that wasn't a mandatory HOA-controlled nightmare. Tom nudged Jake. "You know, we were thinking about renaming the road." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" Tom smirked. "Yeah, something fitting. Carter's Way." Jake chuckled. "I don't need my name on a road." "Fine," Tom said, grinning. "Then how about a sign? Right at the entrance?" Jake sighed. "Let me guess. Sheriff's territory. No HOA allowed?" Tom snapped his fingers. "Exactly." The crowd loved the idea. Jake shook his head, laughing. He didn't need the recognition. He was just glad the right people had finally learned their lesson.